And I'm finding, I put on jumpers when I want to be warm. Hello, and welcome to my podcast. I'm Naomi, and this is a special episode of NJ Knits, where I talk about my knitting. So, this special episode is going to be my year in review, and it is January 24th, so it's a bit later in 2023, but that's okay. The tide is out today on the boat, and so we won't be doing any rocking and rolling. I've covered up the background people in case it's slightly distracting, and I don't know, it might help the lighting as well. It's a bit of a grey January day, but I've got the heating on up here, and hopefully I'll stay warm enough. I have plenty of knitwear to warm me if not. So my trusty knitting book, I have made some notes, and I have some notes on my computer as well. But we're going to look at everything that I've made in 2022, and I kind of broke it down to see what types of things I was making and what the numbers were like for makes for other people versus myself. And I wanted to also look at that in comparison with last year. I'm getting distracted because I forgot. Last year I looked at the ratio of how many things I made for other people and how many things I made for myself, but I can't remember the number of actual makes, and I'm interested to see how that has changed. So I'm going to find that out real quick. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the numbers. I found this really, really interesting, and I even made some charts. They weren't as satisfying as I thought they would be, the charts that I made, but never mind. I'll show them up here as well, just for fun. But my total number of items in 2022 was 60. So I'm counting everything that I can remember. When I've gone through some of these, I've already found some things that I forgot about. But 60 is such a nice round number, I don't want to be tweaking with it now. But I have forgot about a few pairs of socks probably, and one jumper definitely I've forgotten about. But, so 60 makes this year, counting everything, like I'm counting small scarves and small washcloths and basically everything, just not discriminating. 60 makes, and last year, that's comparing with last year, which I made 45 things. Of those 60 makes, 28 were gifted and 32 were kept. And that compares with last year where 27 were gifted and 18 were kept. Now, this doesn't necessarily track with a Naomi becoming more selfish. This probably tracks more likely with Naomi becoming more able to make things that she likes. Because most of the things that I make, I do not set out to make for other people. I set out to make for myself, don't like, and then give away. I guess everyone has a different knitting practice, and that's mine. I don't have a lot of people who really want things made for them. And I find that quite frequently my knits aren't that appreciated, and I would much rather make something that pleases me in the making and have the knit not appreciated than make something that doesn't please me in the making with the intention of giving it to someone and have them not appreciate it, because then there was nothing good for me in that whole process. Whereas at least making it was good for me, and then giving it away, seeing that they don't really care for it, doesn't really bother me because I've already done something to please myself. I'm not reliant upon that person appreciating the item that well. So I don't get that worried about whether or not someone's knit worthy, because I don't generally set out to make things for other people. That being said, people don't ask me for things. They probably don't ask me for things because I give them shite and they don't like it. So I don't know. Overall, it works well for me. It makes me happy. So I think that's all that matters. I'm pretty sure with your hobby, that's all that matters, is that it's good for you. But yeah, I can probably count on one hand the amount of items I made for people that they were requested, and I believe it was one. My uncle wanted a pair of socks, and I made him that, and I think he was happy with them, so that's nice. But I think that's the only person who's asked me for something. I do have someone who's asked me for something, but I don't have any yarn for it, so I just haven't bothered to get any. Anyway, that's a digression. The point is, I don't think that really tracks with me being more selfish. It probably just tracks with me being more successful with my knits, that I kept so many more this year. So last year the percentage was 1/3 of the items I made I kept, and 2/3 I gave away. This year the percentage is 53% I kept, so that's much bigger, and 47% I gave away. So actually more things kept than given away, but pretty even. And then it breaks down, I've broken it down with accessories, socks, and garments are my 3 categories. And total, I made, out of my 60 items, 21 of those were accessories, 18 of those were socks, and 21 of those were garments. I didn't do the percentages, but that would be kind of interesting. But anyway, it's kind of interesting. Accessories 21, garments 21, and socks 18. So pretty even split, kind of interestingly. And across between kept and given away, so of the 21 accessories, 10 of those I gifted, 11 of those I kept. Of the 18 socks, 9 I gifted, 9 I kept. So that's like an even, totally even split. And gifted does count, like Holly, who is, you know, the major recipient of many of my socks that I make. And I suppose that is something I make for someone else because I have to make it her size, so it is intentionally for Holly. It's not like I'm making socks for myself and then, oh no, they fit Holly, so I give them to her. I do purposely make her socks, so that's another thing that I think about making for someone else. Anyway, back to our numbers. With the garments, there were 21 garments, and 9 of them I gifted, and 12 of them I kept. So that's the biggest difference, I suppose. But it, again, fairly even split across the thing. So pretty even amount of variety in my knitting and pretty even amount of those things that I gave away. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. And then sewing, I sewed myself 3 garments this year. And then I sewed myself 9 pouches, 5 of which I kept and 5 of which I gave away and 4 of which I kept. So that's a little side update on the sewing. I'm not going to show my sewed items in the podcast, but just thought I'd let you know. So we're going to go over the garments. We're going to go over everything because I'm a completist. I'm not sure if I want to go through things. I think I'm just going to take you through the year, basically. It's kind of interesting. It's sort of split into, I was in about 3 major places this year for large amounts of time. So the start of the year I was in Canada and Oregon, and then I was in big chunk of the time in the beginning of the year I was in Morocco working, and then I was in Canada again, and then I was home, so in London. So it's kind of interesting to see like the things that I made chronologically and what periods of time it was in. So I'll just run you through. If I have it, I'll show it to you and speak a little bit about how it's worn and how I've liked it. If I don't have it, I'll just give you a little quick couple of sentences, hopefully. I only have an hour and 15 minutes, so we'll try and keep it brief. I'll try and be concise. So, the first thing I made in 2022 was my 1898 hat. And I made that with hand spun. It was the first time knitting with hand spun. It's fun. It's very warm. I haven't worn it much because I do look like I'm wearing a vintage rugby helmet when I put it on. It's packed away, so I haven't got it out because it's packed in my work stuff. I can show you a picture, hopefully. Oh, sun's coming out. It's a bit bright. Bit bright. Don't know about that. Bit bright, my friend. Okay, second thing I made in 2022. Of course, it's at the bottom of this pile. I had these like all organised in the correct order, and it's fallen over literally. So now I don't. Is my Korshavn slipover. And I think I actually finished this in Canada. So I'd gone back to Canada by then. Made the 1898 hat in Oregon. And this is by far one of my most worn knits of 2022. Now, that's partially because it was made earliest, so it had the longest possible time to be worn. But one of the biggest things I love about this is I think the pattern is wonderful, and combined with like the sort of subtle colour of the garment, it's like so wearable with everything. It's got folded arms and folded collar. The other thing that makes it so wearable is how deep the armholes are. You can wear it with anything, and if you have like a slightly wider sleeve on something, it will still go under this. And it just looks so good. So I'll take off my little vest. I tried to dress for this occasion, so I've got a nice tight undershirt on, so I'm not always flashing you. But I think another thing is like just working from home, just throwing an extra layer on. It's so easy and it doesn't feel tight, so you don't notice it. I even put on trousers for you. Don't you feel special? These are like fairly high-waisted, so this comes well below the high-waisted. You could French tuck it if you were so inclined. And it basically like goes down to, that's my navel, that's where these armholes go down to, like the bottom of my ribs basically. And it's just, I mean, I suppose it's like almost a dickie that just attaches really low down. But I followed the pattern exactly on this, I think, and I just love it so much. I suppose I should probably think about making another one. I hadn't occurred to me because I just wear this one all the time and I love it. So I don't feel like I need another one, because this colour goes with everything basically. I made this in Linea Botanica, which was 100% wool. I don't think it's superwash. It's a Rico design discontinued yarn, and it's really soft. It's always been soft. I've worn this under and over things for long periods of time, and there's a bit of pilling, but I think this is worn amazingly well. There's almost no pilling on it. It looks pretty much the same as it did when I first made it. Yeah, overall it's just an absolute win. So that's great. And I used one of my Kylie and the Machine labels in it, which always makes me happy every time I see it. So yeah, it's a really successful make, and this yarn has a tiny bit of variation. I would say it might look grey to you, but I'd say it's like a greyish purple, and there's little bits of variation. There's like extra red in some bits, or sort of pink in some bits, but just a fantastic garment. I don't know if I've washed it, because it doesn't really ever need washing. But yeah, I love this. I really love this. It might be my favourite make of 2022. I wore it all the time if I just wanted to feel a little bit like I was looking a little bit nicer in around the house. I could always throw it on, and yeah. Right, staying quick, staying active and quick. The next thing I made, so after the Korshavn slipover, I made, this is also one of my favourite makes, but not as frequently worn. And that actually goes into something that I want to talk about in when I talk about what I've learnt through this year of making, and that is my Love Number sweater. This is a pattern, a design by Lily Kate France of Lily Kate Makes, and I made this in, sadly, a yarn dyer who no longer dyes yarn, but it's Briggs & Little worsted weight from Canada, and it's dyed by Georgiana Bay Fibres, I think. And this is rose quartz, and I get so many compliments on this jumper. Every single time I wear it, I get a compliment, no question. Like, it's every single time. And it's one of the only things that I get compliments on, actually. I don't get compliments on pretty much any of my other hand makes. Maybe the Korshavn Slipover, actually. But this one, every single time, and I think it's 100% the yarn, as well as the pattern is gorgeous. The yarn looks brand new. It hasn't in any way pilled. Well, I suppose that's a lie. There's some pilling here. But I don't think it's worn badly at all. I love this jumper. Again, sort of tuck it if you like. I tend not to. Yeah, it's a beautiful, gorgeous jumper. I love the stitch pattern. It's so interesting. And it wasn't too much. I was worried it was too much with the yarn and the stitch pattern, but it wasn't. And it's just absolutely beautiful. The tricky thing, the reason this hasn't been worn that much, is the sleeves. So the sleeves are wide and the body is boxy, which I think is gorgeous. However, it's not great for layering, so you can't wear it. And unfortunately, like, this wool would be great for layering because it's thick, rustic wool, worsted weight. But because there's so much space between your body and the wool in a lot of places, like in the body and in the arms, though it doesn't warm you as much as it might. So it's really an outerwear jumper, because it's hard to get it under a coat. However, it's not as warming as you would want it to be for an outerwear jumper. So it goes into a very niche place of, if it's not that cold but still kind of cold, you can wear this as your item. And also it's very bulky, so you don't really want to be like wearing it on a day where you take it off and put it in your bag, because it would fill your whole bag. So it's not like a warm day kind of throw on jumper. It's not a cold day jumper. It's like an very in between day. So it's perfect for the autumn when it's like a little bit chilly outside. You can just put this on and you'll be cozy, but not thick, warm jumpery feeling, if that makes sense. So that's why it's not worn as much as probably I would wear it. But I suppose it also keeps it kind of special. Yeah, it's just beautiful. A beautiful item. So, like, yeah, that's the sort of size that this is. And size is important on a boat. My jumper box is only one box. It's this big, and I fold them and stack them like that. So I have to keep my additions to a limit. So that's my Korshavn and my Love Number. Next we have... So, one of the first pairs of socks I made this year was Daughter of a Shepherd Ram Jam Sport socks. And these are 100% wool, rustic wool, sport weight yarn. I didn't add anything to them. It's just sport weight, rustic wool. Now they have felted a bit. They wear really nicely. They look great, I think. And I think it's fine that they felted a bit because they were sport weight, so they were a little bit on the big side anyway. Yeah, I wear these quite happily because they are really rustic wool. Um, I yeah, they can get a little bit itchy on the feet, but yeah, really happy with them overall. The next pair of socks after that was a pair of Rosalind socks that I test knit, and I added stripes to them, and it's just a really simple sock pattern with ribbing at the top, and then it's got broken rib, which I think is really, really nice for socks. It kind of keeps the sock from looking too crazy when it's not on a blocker, because the broken rib keeps it fatter as opposed to like being really, really thin. I used some of my hand-dyed wool with this just basic sock yarn from Woolcraft, I think, from eBay. I dyed this wool with red wine, actually, I think. So yeah, these are for Holly, obviously, because they're very long. She wears them a lot. She likes them. And that is all. Then, this is one of the first things I made in Morocco when I went, and this is a pair of cotton socks. I was experimenting with cotton socks, and this was one of my experiments. I used cotton and silk wool, so there's quite a lot of drape to this. It doesn't work well for socks, I will say. There's too much drape in the wool. It's a cotton and silk blend, and there's stellina in it to make it sparkly. I did a little pico edge and then folded over the pico edge for the top of the sock. And I think I also knitted it at too loose of a gauge. So I mean, I could maybe try these again, but at a tighter gauge. I did a fish lips kiss heel, and then I did some ribbing around the middle of the sock to like cinch it in, because I like it when commercial socks have that. So I thought I'd try that. It has not worn very well. I haven't worn these much, and that's like, you can see, and I think that's probably due to I knitted it at too loose of a gauge. I hadn't yet learnt that like my gauge means the normal needle for a DK sock. I need to go down like 2-3 needle sizes. So yeah, overall not a win. I'd left them. This is the only thing I've ever knitted where I've left the ends unwoven, and they're still unwoven, and that's the reason why I always weave in my ends immediately. I never leave my ends, because this will happen. A full year will pass and they will be not woven in. I left them not woven in because I wasn't sure if I was going to unravel them and do them again, if I wasn't sure if they would fit right. And then I decided, yeah, I need to just weave these in. They're in a whip basket because they need to be woven, because I refuse to keep wearing these with the ends like this. So I'm going to weave them in. It literally will take me 2 seconds. I just need to do it. Anyway. Next I started, this was in Morocco as well, I was making a load of scarf number ones. I made 2 of them out of this bamboo, 100% bamboo wool from Viking Garn that I got in a charity shop in Norway. These get worn all the time, and Holly has kind of taken them over. It was kind of difficult to do striped scarf number 1, to be honest, because it's not really written in a way where you can make the stripes work, but I sort of strong-armed it into working. It's not meant to be striped, the pattern. This is by My Favourite Things Knitwear. So yeah, I like these. I've made quite a few actually, because Holly likes them so much. I made this one, and then I've got one where it's the beige with the white stripes, but I don't know where that is at the moment. Next we have the saga of the Egwene cardigan, which I knit in a bamboo cotton blend, and that was one of my giveaway projects. It was a whole saga, literally a whole saga. I'll put a picture up of what it looks like. I also made a pair of bamboo socks, which were much more successful, out of bamboo that's the yarn has elastic in it. And it's by Universal Yarns, I think. Bamboo sock something. I don't know where those socks are. I wore them all the time in the summertime, and they seem to be gone. I don't know where they are. But I have more of that yarn, so I can do more of those kinds of socks because they were great in the summer. Then I made 2 more projects when I was in Morocco. One was a ranunculus out of a really gorgeous linen silk lace weight blend, and it was gorgeous, the yarn. I wasn't obsessed with the ranunculus when I finished, so I gave it away to someone who was. I was also aware that, like, I just didn't need that many items. So I was like, ugh. I also made a Vara tee out of some also really wonderful blend. I got both of these yarns in Canada before going to Morocco, and this one was a blend of, again, cotton, I think wool, silk and linen, and oh, it was such a beautiful yarn. I loved it so much. I didn't love the tee that much. It didn't look great on me. It was a mustard colour, and I ended up giving it away to someone on whom it did look great. Then I had some leftover BC Garn Alino, the cotton linen blend, and I made a Mimi, which I like. The neckline ended up being too wide, so I put some elastic in it, and now it sort of looks kind of scrunched. It's kind of cute, and I don't know where it is, but I still have it, and I plan to wear it in the summer. It's a 3/4 sleeve, and it has a little ruffle, and it's really cute. I just, it's not been worn because I made it, and then I think I finished it in the autumn, and then it was no longer warm enough to wear, really. So it didn't get worn much. And that's the one I forgot about. Next, and I think some of these things might be put away because they're summer items. That's probably why I can't find them. Because next I have the Take Turns tank, which was a test for Lily, and that's a beautiful tank. I've got pictures I'll show you. I made it with a linen cotton viscose blend, again from Canada, hand dyed, and it was a fade, so I did the top faded and then I made a pair of shorts to continue the fade. Those are the light summer shorts, and I ended up having to adjust them because they ended up, the pattern, it was probably my gauge, not the pattern, but the crotch was way too low. So I had to adjust them. But yeah, I have a fade where it's like the top all the way down to the shorts, and I love that. The Take Turns tank, I cannot say enough good things about it. It is a beautiful tank. It fits so well. Like the tiny little fit things just are so perfect. I would make it again numerous times just to have some really nice crew neck, like tanks that just look beautiful. I had to go down to a size 2 mil needle to get gauge, but it was potentially because I was using cotton, and things are always different with cotton. Cotton always makes, all bets are off with if you're doing cotton instead of wool, but the end result was perfect. I made a few sport and evening bras as well from this book that I got. I've now given away because I made the 2 patterns out of the book that I wanted to make. And those were not highly successful. I think probably because I was using Aran weight yarn, and I think the pattern was written for fingering or something, and written for cotton. So anyway, I had a lot of fun making them. I made 3, 2 I gave to my mum, and 1 I kept. And also the yarn is a little bit itchy, strangely, because it's cashmere, but I don't know why, it's a little bit itchy, and that makes it very difficult to wear as a bra. Definitely. Next, more things that I've given away. There was a pair of tipsy toe socks, which is a really fun pattern where you do short rows for the toe, and I think that's a cool idea, especially with like colour changing yarn. Made those for my mum. And then I made a Mystic Squares, and this is all still in Canada, which was so much fun to make. I had a bowl of art yarns. It was like a slow colour changing yarn, my sister had been given it for Christmas and didn't know what to do with it, so she gave it to me for my Christmas, which I loved. And I made the Mystic Squares and I loved it. I wore it a couple of times and I decided to sell it because I wasn't wearing it that much. I think also the yellow really wasn't doing a lot. There was yellow in the fade and I don't think it was doing a lot for me. Next, as I'm starting to get a little bit cool, is my Miles shirt jacket. This is a pattern by Ozetta, and as soon as I saw it, I knew I was going to make it. I used the same yarn that she used, which is Wool Dreamers Manchalope, which is an unspun wool, very much like Nutiden, I think. It's much softer than Plutalope, so I think it's more like Nutiden. I have washed this in the machine with the intention of getting out a stain that I got when I made this. When I first had this from a honeymoon, there was a stain from like some charcoal. I did get it out, I'm really happy about that, and I also felted the jumper just a little bit, which I'm also really happy about. It's probably my most worn knit. So yeah, you can kind of tell it looks a bit more felted now. I did put elastic in the back, in the collar, just to keep the shoulders a bit higher, which really helps the sleeve length, and it helps, I think, the look of the collar at the top. Before it was kind of like sitting out here. And this just kind of keeps it in, and it also it's more practical because it keeps me warmer. It stays like closer in when I have it closed. So overall, really nice. I did make it again, and when I made it again, I did more sleeve decreases. And I think I might not have picked up quite so many stitches. So yeah, I think the sleeves are just a bit too wide, because I can't really layer this, which is a bit unfortunate, because it'd be a great thing to wear outside, but again, I tend to wear it as like a wool dressing gown, because it's hard to put something over these sleeves. But yeah, overall really, really happy with it. Since I've washed it, there was a lot of pilling, and now the pilling has got a lot less, still quite a bit, but it is unspun wool, so it's hard not to expect pilling. I think on this wool you don't really notice the pilling very much. And yeah, I wear this quite a lot. I should move this button because you can see it's not quite doing it. But I think the reason I did that was because I didn't want this to be looking like that. So yeah, that was made for my honeymoon. We went to Finland, and I wanted me and my partner to have matching shirt jackets. So after I made my Miles shirt jacket, I think I was still travelling, so I didn't have time and I didn't have the wool for the second one, so I didn't start the second one straight away. The next thing I made was this Lydia 2.0, which for some reason isn't put away with my other summer things. I'd been looking for like a low V-backed top, and I thought this one was really nice. It could be worn either way, this at the back or this at the back. I think I prefer it with this as the front and the V as the back. It's got this lace pattern at the bottom, and it has a little tiny slipped stitch detail of a twisted pearl stitch going up throughout the top. And yeah, it's a lovely colour. I think it was successful. I didn't wear it that much because I finished it near the end of the summer, I think. Yeah. I really like this thing where you like sort of gather your stitches around. I think that's such a cool stitch, and I really want to do more things that have it. There's some jumpers that have really cool stitch details like that I like. Yeah, so this is lovely. It looks nice. I made it from BC Garn Summer in Cashmere, so it's got 10% cashmere and then the rest is cotton. I don't think you really feel the cashmere. So I remember someone saying if it's 10% or less cashmere, it's just there for the name and you don't really notice it. And I kind of agree with that. I have quite a lot more of this yarn. I think I bought... I think it was on a sale and I just bought it on a whim. I think I bought like 5 and I used 3 for this top and I have 3 more. Maybe I just used 2. I don't know. Maybe I bought 6. I can't remember. But I have 3 more, so I have enough for another top. I don't know if I'm going to make another top out of it because I feel like 2 tops in the exact same colour of yarn, 2 summer tops is not something I would really wear probably. So I'll probably use it. I was thinking I would probably use it to make a baby jumper because cotton and cashmere would be very nice for a baby jumper. Or something of that sort. So yeah. We've gone through that and we are down to here. So now we have a load of socks. The next pair of socks, these are a mystery yarn. I got it in a charity shop from, but they feel like viscose and cotton to me. They were 25 cents for these 2. They were balled up, like they were someone's scraps. They were balled up and I love them. I really love these socks. I made them mostly on a river trip and whilst my friend was in hospital, and made them 2 at a time. I made this extra wedge thinking that I was only going to have enough to make them as like super shorties, but then I ended up having enough to make a normal pair of socks, and this extra wedge has ended up just being part of the heel. So little odd extra bulky heel. I love these socks. I wear them all the time in the summer, and the wool is like the softest, nicest cottony wool ever. I wish I knew what it was because it's just so soft and so nice and great summer yarn, and it's worked really well for socks. Like it's a great gauge. It holds up really, really well. These are dirty. They need a wash. But it holds up really well, but it stretches great. Like, look at that, and it even comes back, and these have been worn already, so like there's stretch to it. It's just a great wool. Really pleased with these. Then I made a pair of socks out of some Patton's Croy. This was left over from the Rosalind socks, and this was the Patton's Croy. It was my first time making a tube and then cutting into it and adding the heel and the other stuff. I wanted to see how big of a sock I could get for Holly out of one 50-gram ball of Patton's Croy, and I got a pretty good size sock. Like, that's not the tallest leg, but it's pretty good. She's lost the other one of these, so I don't know where it is. Next, I had this amazing haul of Goodwill yarn in Canada. $15, and I got like, I need to remember how many balls of hand-dyed wool I got, but over 6, I can say that much. This is a worsted weight yarn. It's from a brand called Socks That Rock, and I made a pair of socks out of it because it's superwash wool, and I was starting to realise that actually I really like superwash socks. I like how superwash feels on my feet, and I prefer it to something like Patton's Croy, which feels more just like wool. I think it's similar to like Regia, where it's wool, it's not superwash, or it's a different type of superwash that feels less slippery. So I've learned now, last year was the year that I learned no superwash jumpers, because I made 2 superwash jumpers in 2021 and I gave both of them away. They're too heavy, they're too unshapely, and they just stretch and they don't feel nice to wear, and just everything about them is not great. However, I'm learning this year that I love how superwash feels on my feet. I just like it. I like the slippery feeling on my feet. I enjoy that. And I prefer it to the feeling of more like natural feeling sock yarn. That being said, I do really like my rustic socks, the ones that the daughter of a shepherd, but I wouldn't want loads of them. I prefer loads of superwash socks. So anyway, this is a superwash yarn, and I was trying to work out what I wanted to do with it, and then I decided just to make a pair of socks. So I kind of freestyled these. I added a... Are these the ones I did an extra wedge? No, I didn't. I think I did a bit of a gusset on these, and I did like just a simple pattern with like a pearl bump every once in a while. And yeah, they're great. Very thick, nice socks. Oh, what I did on these was I did a short row toe. So I basically did the same thing as a short row heel, like a fish lips kiss heel, but once I finished, I grafted the sock at the front, which is how that's how commercial socks are done. They do basically a heel and then they graft it along here, which is why your seam is here and not there on commercial socks. But obviously, since I Kitchener stitched it, you can't even see or feel the grafting. So yeah, that was kind of fun. It does make a weird sort of blip on the side, I think, of the toe. So I'm not sure I love it, but I just thought I'd try it just for fun. These are also dirty, so all of my socks are dirty. Next, we have another extremely heavily worn item. My White Mountains jumper by Midori Hirose. I've got a little label in it. I've also added elastic to the collar. And I will show you how it's going. I got this yarn from Knitting for Olive. It's their double soft merino, and sadly they don't make it anymore, but because I love it. And I wish they made it, or there was a place to get it, because it's such lovely yarn. Feels amazing. Looks kind of funny with a roll neck under it. Maybe I'll just tuck that under. It's a bit bulky because that's my roll neck. But it's kind of bulky anyways with the collar with the elastic in it, but it fits so much better. It's a pretty simple raglan jumper, very boxy. Really loving the lighting when I'm standing up. It's really nice. I'm gonna totally steal some screen grabs from this for Instagram. Yeah, I did it in probably the needles called for, which means my gauge was probably way too loose. Although maybe it was right. It's meant to be quite a loose gauge jumper. My only problem with it really, I'd say the sleeves are a little bit wide for me. I'd prefer them to be a bit more in, but they're nice and fitted here, which I love. It's just a bit too boxy. Like, probably That would be better. It's too boxy, which means that it's not warm. And I'm finding, I put on jumpers when I want to be warm. So strange. And I was like obsessed with boxy jumpers. Like I was only favoriting boxy jumpers on Ravelry for ages. And I was like, boxy silhouette is amazing. And one of the other things I'm learning is, as much as I enjoy a bishop sleeve, they're not practical for layering, and as much as I think boxy fit things look great, they're not practical for keeping you warm, because there's too much air between the warm thing and your body, and all that air is cold. So those are two of the things that I've learnt this year. I was supposed to wait until the end to share them all together, but my brain doesn't really work that way. So this was my White Mountains. I wore it constantly because, and especially once I put this in, it keeps me really warm up here. And I think when I was cold, I would just sort of tuck this in a bit, but it's not, it's not exactly ideal. It's a really fluffy yarn, so it does pill, but I think this one has just been washed, and I think washing really does help the pilling to it sort of coagulates, and then it's easier to get it off, and it's not quite as, I don't know. The thing with this yarn, it's blown yarn, and or it's chainette yarn, so the pills are really easy to pick off because they're not really strongly attached. So yeah, this is my White Mountains. Very successful, and I think my favourite thing about it was the yarn. It's so soft. It's just amazingly soft. So yeah, I got this from Knitting for Olive when they were, I guess, getting rid of this wool, and it was like £3 a ball or something, and I just bought 2 sweaters quantities out of impulse, and they've both been put into use. So yes, the next thing after this that I made was the 2nd mile shirt jacket. Only half an hour left. So the next one I made for my partner, and she didn't like any of the colours. Mancholope, Wool Dreamers don't have a huge colour selection in them. Oh, that looks funny now. In their Mancholope. So we went for Plutolope, which has lots of colour options, and she chose Galaxy. Surprise, surprise. The rocket scientist chooses Galaxy. The sun's come out again, so it's hard to see all the colours. Can I shade it? You can see there's reds and blues and yellows, but it's mostly black. This was a breeze to knit. The black wasn't difficult at all to knit with because it's a very loose gauge and it's a very simple pattern. We got these really cool like acrylic buttons. On my one, the buttons are olive wood, and we got both the buttons off eBay. Again, the sun is not being our friend right now. It'll go away in a minute. I made this one the same size, and here you can kind of see what it looks like without the elastic in, what the collar ends up kind of doing on its own. It sort of slides out from your neck, and then the sleeves kind of come down a bit further, even with it buttoned up. It sort of slides out to here-ish. I did do what I said I was going to do with the sleeves. I made them come in much more, and I sort of made an attempt not to pick up quite so many sleeve stitches here, but I didn't want it to look, you know, puckered or something. So yeah, I ended up just tapering quite a lot so that it was a more sort of normal cuff. And I like that a lot. This is really warm, but obviously the guard hairs that you get in Plutolopi make this quite itchy. Mine is like soft, so soft. It's like the softest for like completely rustic wool. It's so soft. And this is like itchy. I've also gone over the buttonholes with just whip stitch to make them firmer, because they were the buttons were like coming back out again. So yeah, I would say my partner doesn't really wear this very much. She wore it on a honeymoon. That's probably as much as we're going to get. She's put it on once or twice when it's been like particularly cold in the boat, because it's quite warm. But yeah, I basically think like I would just prefer this collar to sit more like that. And it basically just doesn't when you put it on. Once you have it on, it just kind of relaxes out to a here-ish sort of position. So yeah, I guess maybe having done this bit tighter would have helped. Although it's fairly tight, pretty strong. Not sure, but yeah, I might put some elastic in this. I think my partner said she might like it if I did. But yeah, not very well worn. But sometimes I steal it. I think once I even put this one on top of my one when I was really cold. So yeah, that was a Miles shirt jacket. Next, I made the chunky vest by Witra Design, and I made that out of two lots of hand-dyed yarn. One I hand-dyed myself, so there was avocado dyed yarn, and some hand-dyed mohair from Canada. I wore that a bit, but in the end I gave it away. It's very, very thick and chunky. It's 2 strands of Aran weight superwash held with 1 strand of mohair. So very, very chunky. And yeah, like nearly 500 grams of wool. And I just was not going to wear it as much. The amount of wear I would get versus the amount of space it would take were not of an appropriate ratio for it to merit staying with me. So that was that. Next, we have... I mean, look at all these socks. There's so many still to go. Next, we have Here's another one of these that I made. This one's also bamboo. This is True Boo by Lion Brand. It's a bit small. Probably could have done with being a bit longer. But Holly really wanted one of these and she likes this one a lot. The next thing I made, I got this in Goodwill in Canada as well. A bunch of just thick Aran weight cotton. I made some half and half. This one's particularly bad. This is the last of the cotton, so I kind of just messed about. But I made some half and half washcloths and half and half like hand towels, and they got used a lot. So there's the washcloth. It's all out of shape because it's just been hanging like this and it's been used. And one of these is mine, one of these is Holly's. Can't remember which is which, but yeah, just garter stitch. It works really well for scrubbing. Like the garter stitch really is quite abrasive. And then this is the nice tea towel. The other one is a bit on the scrappy side. So yeah, I really liked this pattern. It was fun to make. Just a nice easy win, really. It's a free pattern by Pearl Soho. Anything that you want more information about, do just pop a comment below and I will send you the details. Right. There was another scarf number 1, I showed you that. Next there was the Chantilly vest, which I test knit for Laura of Penrose Knits. This is another thing that as soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm making that. So here it is. This is done with Filcolana Saga, which I'd never used before and I really love. Held with some mohair. And I actually bought the correct yarn for the test knit. Holly was like, just buy the correct yarn. I was trying to think of something else to do, scrap something else together, and I actually just bought the yarn from knit.co.uk, which had a discount for the testers, which was lovely. And yeah, it was really fun to be like, I'm doing it right. So I just love this collar so much. Here it is. This was one of my Christmas items that I wore this Christmas. The shape is just divine. I love, the length is perfect. So, these are not as high-waisted as we started with in the beginning of the day. There they are, back to high-waistedness. So, with high-waisted, you can still tuck it. Give it a little French tuck it. But with lower waisted, they're just it just sits really nicely. I'm actually loving this frills and army combo. It's really working for me. But yeah, this is the pattern. It's really, really soft. Interestingly, I'm finding that this mohair is becoming less annoying to me the more it's being worn, the more it's been worn. I don't have that many garments with mohair. Nothing I've shown you so far has mohair in the garment. Which is funny because it feels like I have a lot of mohair. I guess the chunky vest had mohair in it, and I gave that away. And the Wednesday sweater last year that I made had mohair in it, and I gave that away. So yeah, mohair items really haven't really lasted that well in my closet. But this, when I first made it, I was like, oh, I don't think I like the mohair very much. But it's, I don't know, it's sort of incorporated into the wool a bit more, and it feels less like a bunch of extra fluff. It feels more like it's just part of the garment now. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but yeah, this is lovely. It hasn't had a ton of wear, but it hasn't had that much time alive yet. It's quite a young garment. Next, we have a yarn that I have waxed lyrical about many, many times. And it's unfortunately, again, discontinued. That always seems to be the case with me. I fall in love with discontinued yarns because they're cheap, and then I buy them on sale, and then I love them, and then they're discontinued. So this is my thin air, which I made out of Brooklyn tweed in their veil base, and this is the colour Morel. And I didn't do the sleeves. I kind of was planning to do the sleeves, but I decided not to. And so I've done this. Otherwise, I've done it to pattern. I just kind of stopped the sleeves early and made it a sort of short sleeve situation. I think the level of boxiness on this is much better than, say, on my White Mountains. I love the really, really big V. I think it hasn't really had much anywhere because it's just not practical for winter. But I did start making this in the summer. So it was meant to be like a summertime, throw on summertime really light top. and it is super light because I think this is only 100 grams of wool. The yarn is phenomenal. It hasn't had really any wear, so I can't say that like it's not pilled at all, but it's also not really been worn. But yeah, I'm really, really, really pleased to have this. And I now have finished the second one as well, which is a totally different look, completely different look to this. I made a mistake when I first started making this jumper, and I was already like this far into the yoke, and I have this like aversion to any kind of frogging at all. And so I was like, fine, I'll just make a second thin air that has a different neckline, and I'll just go buy some more yarn and make two, because I really loved the pattern. And they didn't end up having any more of the colour I'd used, but they had a different colour. So the one that I initially started, I stopped where it was, made this one correctly, and then went back with whatever leftover I had and finished the second one plus the extra ball of wool. So, but that I didn't do in 2022, so we're not showing it here. Next, I made a colourwork hat for my father, which ended up being too big, and I ended up having to felt. Next, this is potentially my favourite knit of all of 2022. It's my November Balaclava, which I essentially made as a hood because obviously it's far too big to be a balaclava. But I added this string in the it's just looped inside the tubular bind off, and I've just plaited the wool. It's made in Wool and the Gang kind of sexy wool, which is alpaca. It's like an alpaca blow yarn, and I got it in a charity shop for £4, and it's my favourite thing. It's the warmest, softest, cuddliest, amazingest thing ever, and I really want more of it, but it's so expensive in real life. I had this much left over, so I made a tiny neckerchief, which you can't really like pull around, you just have to tie it in a double knot to keep it on. That's fine, right? Little neckerchief. I've never actually worn it together like this. This is hilarious. Anyways, I've worn this pretty much every single day since I made it. I wear it outside, under a hood. I wear it inside. It's just so easy to wear. I'm obsessed with it. It's a great colour. It goes with everything. Like, you know, if you have like big hair and you kind of want to leave it, but you really need a hat on, you know, just feel a bit like a movie star. And then if it starts to get cold, you can just yeah. I've been wanting to make a hood pattern for ages, and I haven't still. But I have this now. I love it. It's potentially my favourite thing. Next, I have my Swan Lake socks. These I started in 2021, and I just didn't finish the second sock until now. Update on these. So I made these with single strand, like single ply rustic wool. So they're my second pair of rustic socks. But this was single ply mule spun yarn by Custom Wool and Mills. Now, it's now looks like it's made with mohair because it's got such a halo, but it's also felted, but not horrendously. And I've just blocked them. That's why they're so sort of like flat and beautiful looking. I'll put them on. I don't think I can get my foot up to show you, but I will put them on. And they still fit. Also, I don't want to show you my really, really hairy legs, but they still fit, but they're very felted now. But, you know, that's okay. They started out a bit, one of them started out fitting perfectly and the other one was a bit big. And now that they're felted, the one that was a bit big is still just a touch loose around the foot. Like around here it's a little bit loose. But it fits better now. So yeah, they look very different now. They're so fluffy. But they still fit, which is a win. So that's single mule spun yarn. And I did try to felt these a little bit. It's gotten so soft as well since it's gotten like felted like this. So soft. And I did want to felt them because the one of the socks was a bit big. So it was intentional and it worked. So that's nice. The next thing I made was an antler toque, and this was with some yarn that I got in Finland on our honeymoon. Gave that away because I made it for myself. It ended up being a child size. I did make a child size, so that could have been a hint as to why it ended up child size. Here's a pair of socks I made Holly with some other yarn we got in Finland. This is Novita sock wool. It's technically an Aran weight. It's sort of worsted-ish. It could get away as DK maybe, thick DK. I paired it with some scraps I had. This is hand dyed. This is some Regia held double, which I ran out of, so I had to do the very tip of the heel with a bit of hand dyed wool as well. So this is the hand dyed wool I have. It's supposed to be a fingering weight, but it's definitely DK. And then, yeah, the Regia was fingering, so I held it double for the heel. So this was another tube that I made and then cut into to put the heel in. And I did this heel as a round heel, just out of curiosity, instead of doing it with the lines on the side. So yeah, a thick pair of socks. I can't say I love this colour combo, but hey ho. They're not mine, they're Holly's. The next thing I've finished, this is also with Custom Wool and Mills mule spun wool, but it is done in fisherman's rib, and it is a slipover which I made for Holly, and this ended up going in an opposite direction, which was a very surprising one. Ended up for me. I made it for Holly and I ended up keeping it because oh, that's cute. Yeah, because it ended up being your average everyday failure. I tried to make the sleeves a bit open here. I do actually wear this to work quite a lot. It's very warming. The wool is warm. It's squishy. It fits with things. It's a good length. It's a bit wide. Do need to mend that. But yeah, it ended up not working for Holly. I ended up adjusting it sewing wise. Like I cut and sewed and cut it to fit me. And yeah, it's a slipover. Not my most successful work, but it's actually fairly practical, so that's good. This is the inside. You can see where I cut it along here. And that is obviously undoing because the thread is undone a bit. So I need to fix that. Next, I made a couple of hats out of the leftovers from the two mile shirt jackets. Neither of them were successful. I've given them away to babies. One of them got felted and the other one just was too small. I made a pair of socks for my uncle, which I mentioned, out of Regia 6-ply. Those were successful. They took a long time. They were very wide and long feet. And then I made myself a pair of socks out of leftover DK weight wool, which I made Holly a pair of socks in, which I think I've forgotten to mention, but anyway, another pair of socks I forgot about. I took the different colours, split them in half, and put them as stripes. I've lost the other one of these socks. But yeah, the sea cell, it's superwash wool with seaweed to make it stronger instead of nylon. And I will say, they're probably my least well held up socks that I've had. The gauge is probably wrong. It's probably too loose. But, like, I mean, maybe the other one of these might be in my mending basket, because I think it already has a hole in it. And it's the first time I've had a hole in handmade socks. Normally I get them in store-bought socks. I don't normally get them in handmade socks. So I think the gauge is a bit loose on these socks, to be fair. Like, so yeah. Future C-cell usage. I have some scraps of this. It definitely needs to be done on much smaller needles. I think I was trying to combine it with this, which is DK. So I was trying to do a bit of a looser gauge to make this not look so different. That's probably where the other one is. I think it is in the mending basket. Next, I made 2 sets of watch cap hat and mitts. I made one in this colour from Wool Dreamers. Holly and I went on a little weekend trip after our wedding to Barcelona because we were sad because our honeymoon was over. And I got some yarn there in Barcelona. And this is Wool Dreamers Motta, which I think is, again, Manchego mostly. And I made 2 of these. This hat, I wear it all the time. The only problem I would say is that it's not horrendously warming, because it's the gauge is again a bit loose, I think. The wool is sort of like a DK weight, and I probably should have made it at a tighter gauge for it to really, really keep my head warm. But it's great for everyday usage, just not when it's really cold. And then these are my mitts, which I made 2 different lengths, but actually now it just works perfectly because I always have a watch on. So this one fits over my wrist, and then this one is my watch hand. So it doesn't go over my watch, which is perfect, because then I can just lift my sleeve of my jacket and see the time, or see the text or whatever. And this one is nice and long. So a mistake, but actually one that I might repeat in future, because it works really well. Yeah. So these are great. Holly wanted some, so I made some in pink for her. No real need to show those to you, because they're exactly the same as those ones. I made... We're almost there. Next, we've got Holly's Christmas socks, which were these Velociraptor socks. And the yarn is some scrap Ozetta, but then this yarn is an amazing combo of alpaca and I think cashmere and wool that I got in my Goodwill haul of... Also, this sea cell yarn was from the Goodwill haul as well, of hand-dyed wool. So yeah, successful. Holly loves these. Yeah, they were great Christmas socks. They're also dirty, I think. Next, I made another colourwork hat, this time with size 1.75mm needles. My introduction to 1.75mm. It's great stuff. And I made a colourwork hat in that size needles, which is perfect. I gave both the hats to my dad because I knew my mum would steal the felted one, and she has stolen the felted one. And my dad wears the non-felted one, and he sent a picture of him cross-country skiing with it, because it's even though I knit with 1.75mm needles and I made a colourwork hat with the yarn, the Jamesons and Smith, which was all bought from charity shops in like random amounts, like people's scraps. even though all of that, it's still quite loose. Like the gauge is fairly loose, and so my dad's like, yeah, the air comes in nicely and it keeps me like regulated, like because he gets quite too hot sometimes when he's cross-country skiing. So he's like, yeah, it's really nice because it's like has ventilation, and I'm like, that's hilarious because I made that with 1.75mm needles, and it is still like just a little bit big, but not way too big. That's the problem, I guess. I shouldn't really do those Fair Isle hat patterns because they tend to only be in one size with one set of stitch counts, and it just it's hard for me to meet those gauges. Next I made a Dave's balaclava, and I gave that to my cousin. I don't think she likes it. I don't think she's gonna wear it. But never mind. I had fun making it, and I used up a lot of scrap yarn, so that was very satisfying. And yeah, that's all. Then I did finally finished my oldest whip ever. I don't know if I'm going to put it on for you. It's my Gibson ruffle blouse. This whip has been a whip since I started the podcast, and I finally finished it this year. My sister made one in Knitting for Olive, and I got the yarn for her and got her the pattern, and we were sort of doing it as like a sister do it together thing. The mohair I paired really wasn't as good of a match as I thought it was. It's Ito Sensei, and this is a lace weight alpaca, which I have here. I've made this out of one of these and my cherry jumper last year. I think I bought 4 of these and I've used 2. Yeah, and I still had leftover. So yeah, this goes a long way. It's basically lace weight, or light fingering. So yeah, really happy with this. The fit is phenomenal. And yeah, I'll show you some pictures of me wearing it. I wore it at Christmas time. It was a Christmas outfit, and I wore it ice skating over Christmas, which was really fun. We're almost there. Got my last couple of things that I made before the new year. I made this pair of walk in the park socks with my advent, and actually before these I made these with my advent, and I forgot to count these socks as well, so probably up at 63. These were my first advent socks, and I actually love these socks. They're a bit longer. Yeah, I love them. I like wearing them. This is also like a huge combination of different types of wool. There's like wool, there's wool and cotton, there's like acrylic, there's wool and like stellina-y stuff, there's more acrylic, there's mohair, there's cotton. It's just like a real fun cluster. And then this has got some cotton as well. Quite a lot. I think this is cotton, I think this is cotton, I think this is cotton, and then this bit is probably wool. And this is actually the sea cell that I've used as well here as the contrast, because all of these were the next colours in the advent. And my last pair of advent socks I finished after the new year. And then I also fixed a pair of smart wool socks, which are quite expensive store-bought socks, and I'd taken these camping and left them to dry near the fire, and the whole heel burnt out. So I got my 1.75mm needles out, and I used some Regia 6-ply so that it was like extra thick and an extra tight gauge, and made a little heel. And it's hilarious, and it makes me laugh, and it makes me very happy because now I can wear these socks again, because they were the first time I was using them. I got them destroyed. So that's it. So I had to jump off really quickly because I had a meeting, but I just wanted to do a little finish to the video. Thanks very much for watching, and if you have any questions about any of the things I've mentioned, please do leave a comment and ask. I'll try to link all the patterns that I knit this year down below, and at least put the names of them. But yeah, the one thing I did want to say was just a little note on like productivity. I find interesting that question of like process over product. I'm definitely not a product knitter, but I think I'm probably also a slightly different form of process knitter, because the bit of the process that I enjoy is the physically making bit. Not really the decision making, not really the adjusting, just the making. Just the physical movement of like making stitches. And I think that's partially why A, I make so many things, and B, I make so many mistakes, and C, I make so many things that I don't end up wanting. And that's totally fine. I'm not necessarily proud of the fact that I've made 60 items this year. I don't really see how many things you make as a thing to be proud of or not, because it's not like the point of doing it is to make lots of things. The point of doing it is to enjoy yourself. So I'm proud of how much I've enjoyed myself, and I think if your point is to enjoy yourself, then that's the thing to focus on, I guess, is did you succeed in enjoying yourself? If so, you did it. Congratulations. If the point was you wanted to make a lot of things, then of course how many things you make will matter. But if it's not, then it doesn't really matter. So I sort of feel that way. Like, if anything, I feel slightly like, wow, that was a lot of things. Maybe I need to relax a little bit, because maybe that's a little bit consumerist or something. You know, if anything, I feel a little bad. But yeah, that is to say, like, I think when you see people making lots of things, the question to remind yourself is like, why am I doing this? Is it in order to make lots of things, or is it in order to enjoy myself? That's the like scale you need to weigh your own self on. But anyway, sorry, I don't know why I got very like, this is what you must know. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say on that. Was that's just my personal preference. What I enjoy is making stitches, I guess. And yeah. So I made lots of them. Be fun to find out how many stitches. I'm never going to do that. That's way too much work, but it would be funny. Interesting. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling because I'm going to do another video now. So if you enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and consider subscribing, because that would make my day, and also consider leaving me a little comment. Let me know what you're working on, what you made this year, what your favourite make this year was, what your least favourite make was. Not least favourite, that's no fun. What your favourite make, or what your most worn make. Probably it's either this or this, my Miles shirt jacket, that are the most worn. And probably my favourite is my balaclava, because I just wear it all the time. But anyway, I will see you later. Bye!